Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Not So Special podcast. I believe this is episode 4. Lucky number 4. I am officially on Google Play, and I'm assuming a lot of other podcasting apps. I'm not aware of them yet. So, whatever service that you're listening to this on or have access to, if you wouldn't mind checking for this podcast and letting me know either on Twitter or on YouTube. The reason for the switch is because SoundCloud sucks. I do not want to spend or pay any money for podcasting. I think it should be a free service. And thankfully for the help of Derek of Two Dorks, otherwise known as Deej13 on Twitter, he kind of gave me some pointers and pointed me in the right direction of how to do this and get my podcast hosted completely for free. So that kind of is nice because then I don't have to, do the whole, hey guys, give me some money on Patreon and stuff like that. So I don't have to do any of that stuff. Not that I would anyway. But doing it for free is clearly a better option. So SoundCloud, if you don't know, actually only lets you upload a certain amount of minutes in total. So my original understanding was that it would give you a certain amount of minutes per month, and then past that you had to pay for hosting fees, which is fine. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have to, pay. Hosting isn't free and whatever, and if you have to pay a little bit of money, that's fine too. I just personally don't want to do it because I don't make any money off of anything. So I don't want to have to pay for anything. I just am putting my content out for people to enjoy, kind of as a free service, and kind of for myself as well. So I don't want to have to pay for it either. So that's just my 2 cents. So anyways, I went through the application process and the technical hoops to get my podcast up on an RSS feed at hopefully other podcast apps, including Google Play, will pick up. And hopefully you will enjoy this a little bit easier than having to go to SoundCloud. And I was able to steer another podcast onto Google Play because I was listening to it on SoundCloud, and I got annoyed because, well, as many of you know, I drive a truck for a living, and so I listen to a lot of podcasts through my earbuds while I'm driving, which is completely legal and safe. Deaf people are allowed to drive too. Okay, don't jump on me for that. But SoundCloud, the app on SoundCloud that I'm using for my version of Android, isn't exactly ideal. So having it on Google Play is just a little bit easier. All my phone controls and my touch controls work a lot easier on my phone and on my headset. So that's why I also made the move for Google Play, that people can get it for free. Also on SoundCloud, I had to stream it and I had no option of downloading it. So that's the nice thing about Google Play is you can download it, you can listen to it whenever, and you're not eating up your data. Not everyone in the world has free data like other places. So anyways, that's just my little plug. Check me out on Google Play. I am there. And if anyone wants to do artwork for me, that would be awesome too, because my artwork sucks. It's just kind of whatever I could throw together on a surprise free video or photo editor online. Yeah. It's not great, but it's something. Me and graphics don't go very well together. So, what have I been up to? Not a whole lot. It was funny because pretty much a week after I recorded and posted my last episode for the Not So Special podcast, I think it actually went up maybe the day of or the day after. I'm trying to remember the timeline here. But anyways, basically a day or two after the video got posted, not after I recorded, I got into a car accident. And that would have been fun to kind of talk about, but at least now I've had a kind of a month to process things. It was nothing serious. It was a little I guess it's literally a fender bender because I did bend a fender. And it wasn't really on the road. Well, it was on the road, but basically what happened was, I'm trying to explain it, but kind of dance around the subject. But to be honest, it's a little bit of an embarrassing story because it's my fault and I should have known better. I'm a professional truck driver. I should have known better, and I just slipped up and I made a mistake. So the way my work schedule works is I work 4 days a week. I work 10 hours a day, and I get one day off during the week. Basically, still coming up to 40 hours a week. And so on my day off, I'm able to stay home, but I still have to take my wife to work, take my son to daycare. And so at the end of the day, I was in a bit of a rush. I was running a little bit late. I was doing projects around the house and running errands and stuff. And so I quickly jumped into my car and I went to back out of the driveway. And my neighbor had parked his SUV directly behind my driveway. And as I pulled out, as I have to have room for two cars on our driveway, so I park on the right and I have to back out further so I don't hit the curb and whatever. Basically, I bumped into my neighbor's car behind me. It's a white SUV parked against the snowbank, and I just didn't see it. I knew it was there because I had nearly hit it that morning when I was leaving to take everyone to where they needed to be. And this morning it just kind of, or that night when I went to leave again, I just kind of slipped my mind and I bumped into this car. So a little less dramatic than you were probably hoping for, or expecting it to be, but whatever. It wasn't. It was technically an accident. So I cracked my bumper and I bent his bumper and fender. Luckily, his front bumper and fender and my rear. And thankfully, I did not break his headlight or anything like that. And it wasn't that expensive of a fix. Thankfully, my neighbor is also understanding. He knows that, crap happens and you just got to deal with it. But he did want it fixed sooner rather than later. Understandable. I was able to kind of stall it out a little bit till I could get paid and get a little bit more money up for it and squared away. And he was, very gracious to, let me pick a place that I wanted it done, as long as it was professional, it was accredited, and whatever. And so we got that paid and fixed up for. My bumper is not fixed; it's still cracked. But I'm hoping that I'm just gonna ride it out until spring, and hopefully someone bumps into my car and I can make them pay for it. But yeah, that's kind of the deal. But the repair wasn't too bad, thankfully. And I don't want to disclose how much it was, but the nearest approximation I can give you was it still cost less than one pair of Joe's glasses. And if you get that reference, good for you, and you'll kind of know less of what I paid. So yeah, movies. I've been watching some movies. So on my lunch breaks and whatever, I have movies on my phone. So I'll stop for half an hour, watch something, catch up on this, that, and the other. But some movies I've been watching. I'm only going to go over a couple here. I watched The Trust. I was going to jump to the next one, but I realized I watched The Trust. It is actually a Nicolas Cage movie that's pretty good. It stars Nicolas Cage and Elijah Wood as cops, basically cops who were bored with their jobs and they decide to do a heist, and so they want to rob criminals. Basically, it's a heist for a criminal thing, and I think this movie works mostly because Elijah Wood is really good at looking scared, and he does that really well in this movie. And Nicolas Cage is kind of a weird guy, and he kind of plays a weird cop. And I think the movie plays well to the strengths of both actors. I think Elijah Wood is a little bit more, a bit more of a deeper actor than Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage kind of gets typecast into like certain roles, being the crazy one, and he works really well for that. I think Elijah Wood has a little bit more dexterity when it comes to acting, and so, anyways, it works a little bit better. The movie doesn't really go according to plan, or the plan doesn't go according to plan. Things kind of go awry. Anyways, it's on Netflix. Give it a watch. It's pretty good. The next is 6 Days, which is also a movie on Netflix, where I think it's the Iranian terrorists taking, or I can't remember. I think it's the Iranians taking over the Arab consulate in the UK. I don't remember. It's based on a true story. Anyways, you should definitely watch it. It's kind of goes over, the how the Iranians took over. I'm gonna say Iranians. I could be completely wrong, and I don't want to offend anybody. I'm gonna say Iranians. I'll say Middle Eastern. A Middle Eastern nation, extremists take over a consulate in the UK, and it's kind of how they did so, and how the UK forces took care of it. And it kind of goes over. I think it's Margaret Thatcher basically set the precedent of how domestic terrorism would be dealt with up to this day, basically. So pretty interesting. It's not really an action movie except for like maybe the last 10 minutes. But it is a suspenseful movie, and it is historically accurate when it comes to the tactical planning and execution of hostage situations. And they do use some historical footage in the movie to kind of compare, like, this is how we did it in our movie versus, and then you'll see kind of what they did. And they're pretty spot on. So that was interesting. And then I did go to watch Black Panther this past Sunday. That was a bit of a mess, not the movie, but me getting there. It had been kind of a crappy weekend, and I was trying to catch up on stuff, and I just basically missed out. So the original theater that I was going to go to with some of my wife's friends and my wife, obviously, that kind of fell through because it sold out really quick. Not surprising, Black Panther, blockbuster movie on opening weekend, bound to happen. But we had already worked out getting my son looked after for a couple hours in the afternoon, and so we ended up having to go to another theater on the other side of town, basically, in order to make it work. But I did go see it. It is really good. I really enjoy the villain of the movie. I don't want to spoil too much. Or spoil anything because it is a new release, but I find the villain very interesting. He's got different motivations than most stereotypical villains that you would see. Having grown up in Africa, I found that was really interesting to hear, like, the music and kind of the influences of this, that, and the other thing, and kind of the juxtaposition between, like, rural Africa, like depicted rural Africa, versus like a technological advanced Africa, and kind of like the hybridization of both of those cultures into this fake country of Wakanda. That was really interesting. I found that looking into the background, like they're kind of having a conversation up front. Meanwhile, I'm looking to the back. How do they do this? And the detail is there if you want to look for it. That's what I found the most interesting anyway. And then I just watched a movie last night called Kicks, which is this movie is not well known by any means, and I kind of feel like it kind of deserves it. It takes place in the ghetto of California. Not really ghetto. I want to say lower income, they deal with a lot of drugs and drug violence and gangs. And it's about a kid who has like really old shoes. They're falling apart, and shoes are kind of like his status symbol. If he had some nice shoes, he would feel like this. He would be able to do that. It's kind of his own self-image projected onto these shoes, and he really wants them. He finds a way to get them, and then they're taken away from him by a local gang or bully. And then it's basically his quest to get his kicks back. And it goes to some pretty dark places. It shows kind of the harsh reality of life in this kind of economic class. And it's not pretty, but, such is the reality. And again, the bully, it kind of shows life from both sides. So yes, you see this kid who's, he's downtrodden, he doesn't have much, and he gets the one thing he cares about taken away from him. And then it goes and kind of shows the life of the bully, or like the tough guy, and his motivations. Why did he take those shoes? His motivations for, wanting to do right by his own people and his family, but still like the clash of those two. And like, both sides do wrong in order to do right for themselves. I don't know, it's kind of an interesting dynamic. check it out. It's called Kicks. Came out in 2015 or 2016. It's not on Netflix, so you'll have to find a different way to watch that. Wink, wink. Um, yeah, pretty interesting. I really enjoyed that one. Probably one of my more favorite movies that I've seen this year. That I could say. Games. Okay, what have I been playing? I had some friends over and we played Windjammers, which is kind of like an old arcade frisbee volleyball, I'm going to call it, based on an old Neo Geo game. They remastered it for the PS4 and the PS Vita. It may be available on other consoles and platforms. I'm just not aware of them. I got it on the PS4 and Vita through Limited Run Games. And one of the few limited run games that I opened right up and just threw in right away. And it's a lot of fun. It takes a little bit to get used to the controls, but I had some friends and we kind of just threw them in on it and we ended up playing it for a couple hours. It's a very simple game, kind of like playing a tennis game back and forth. But it's just, I don't know. There's something about those easy to play arcade games that just kind of like, you just kind of play with them over and over and over again. So that's what we did. And that was a lot of fun. And the next game I played and beat, I will say, I beat it, is Shadow of the Beast. This is available digitally, but I got a physical release through PlayAsia. It's an Asia English release that you can get. And it's based on an old Amiga game. And by golly, that's a good game. Holy, you guys should check that game out. It starts out very simple. Like it's kind of a 2D brawler. There's no up and down movement. It's only left and right. But it's a kind of high fantasy. You are a beast. You run around. You get upgrades. You have to find upgrades in the world, and then you kill enemies and you get points, and then those points get you money, and then you're able to unlock further upgrades once you beat the level. And then some of the bonus stuff is you can unlock the original game, and then you can unlock infinite lives in the original game, stuff like that. And I think one of the coolest things, and there's, the regular, more strength, you get more blood to do more special moves, that kind of stuff. More vitality, more brutal moves and stuff like that. And all that stuff's unlocked as you work your way through, which is really fun. But the most interesting thing that I found in the game is that you have no idea what the story is. The first time you play through this game, you're going to have no idea why any of this stuff's happening. And in the game, in the levels themselves, you unlock story bits. So you'll see something, you unlock it, and then once you come out to the overworld, it has the regular levels, and then above it, it has all the story bits, and you unlock all those as you go along, and you can watch them as a cinematic. And people talk to you. You're a beast. You're not a human, and so people are saying things. People are talking to you. Sometimes you'll see a bit of it almost seems like a narration, but you have no idea what's going on. As you would as a foreigner, as a beast that's being taught to do something, you're doing stuff because you're told to do it and not knowing why things are happening the way they are. And so the more points you get, if you go into the extras, you actually can unlock subtitles for specific species in the game. So you'll learn to understand, what the humans are saying, or what this specific beast is saying, or this specific race of creature is saying, and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I think that's kind of interesting. So it kind of forces you to play the game over and over and over again. It's not a long game. It only took me 5 or 6 hours. And it's really fun once you get into the flow of combat and you're going back and forth. You could just do that all day. I really enjoyed it. I had a friend, again, I usually try to have friends over on Friday. I was supposed to have more. I only had one friend show up, and he had a long day at work, and we were kind of trying to figure out what to do. And so I said, I'll play this game, and before I had finished, I think at the first level, he had almost fallen asleep. Not because the game was boring, just because he was really tired. So I ended up just playing the game, and I got almost to the last level before he woke up. He had a hard nap at my place. I guess that, he's feel comfortable to come to my house and hang out and fall asleep, and my chairs are comfortable. So whatever, you're more than welcome to do that if you want. Um, and yeah, and basically on Saturday, it was Friday, and then Saturday morning, I was able to finish it, and it was really good. And I think everyone should try it out if you can. I think the release is still available on PlayAsia if you want to check it out. It is still there. All right, moving on. Pickups. I got some game pickups. Yeah, I did release a pickup video not that long ago, maybe about a week or two ago, showing my latest finds and pickups. The one that's not there is I did pick up the Secret of Mana remake for the PS4. So I'm trying to get rid of my my SNES copy. No luck so far. I think a lot of people are talking about like how new game releases can cause retro games to fluctuate. And for the longest time, that wasn't true. A new game would come out, or a remaster or whatever, but those games would they could still command a high price, or a higher price. I think that's changing. So I think once the new releases are coming out, the older games are starting to go down. Or even just re-releases. So take for instance, the Wonder Boy limited run game that was coming out. Everyone was dying to get that game. A lot of people missed it. Everyone was pissed that they couldn't get it. I guess the consumer is led to believe that is it for that game. If you miss that limited run, you're never going to get a physical copy of that game, a North American game. But that's simply not the case. Just recently, the publisher Nicholas has released Wonder Boy, the exact same game the limited run produced. They've re-released it for PS4 and for Switch. So if you want a physical version, it's still out there. It's just not the limited run branded one. So limited run branding its games has become less valuable. And thankfully, I have some Twitter questions. This will come up a little bit later, where I kind of go over how the limited run thing a little bit more, at least my interpretation of it. But those games that are like very high value can drop with a re-release. And even though we're told, or we're led to believe, I don't think we're told, but we're allowed to believe our own version of the truth, and so we're led to believe that limited run is producing these, and then that's it, but you can still get those versions elsewhere, and it will affect the price later. That's a long way to say that I still haven't sold my Secret of Mana for Super Nintendo. I'm trying to get my money back on it, so I think I spent $70 for it, and I'm trying to get as close to 70 as I can for it. And hopefully that will get sold soon, or it'll go to the Barrie Game Exchange. I also, so of the video there, I did find a copy of Gotcha Force for the Nintendo GameCube, which, as many of you know or may not know, I have no idea, that is a very rare and uncommon GameCube game. It goes upwards of $200 Canadian, and I found it at Value Village for $10, and I thought that was spectacular. I haven't found a game worth that much ever. I don't think I've ever found a game worth that much for that low price. I found I think the most expensive game that I found was Mega Man X2 on the Super Nintendo. I think that was the most expensive game I've ever found. I no longer have it. I sold it. And as far as Gotcha Force, I've had a few people offer to buy it from me. So there's already a waiting list for that game. There's quite a few people who are going for complete GameCube collections, and that is one of the games they need. And it's very possible that I will sell it. Just not right now. I would like to actually be able to play it and try it out and see, is it worth the high price that I got it for, or not, that it's going for. And luckily I was able to get that for a reasonable cost. So yeah, that's kind of the most interesting find that I've had. But I did find a TV out of the garbage. It's a Sanyo. It's an older model. It has capacitive touch buttons on the bottom of it, which is interesting. Came with a remote. It's pretty. I think it's like a 32, maybe a 34-inch screen. I can't really remember. But it has like 3 HDMI's, composite component, and it has a VGA input, which I don't think I've ever really seen on TVs before. I know they have been available, I just haven't seen them, and so for that reason I was able to grab it. Now when I got it, it was covered in snow because it's winter here in Canada, and I thought a lot of the snow would have like gone down inside. There are venting slots in the top of the TV. And a lot of snow would have gotten down in there, and I hope that it wouldn't have fried anything. So I took about a week. I don't know if this was necessary. It's just what I did. I took about a week moving it. I put it in the garage, which isn't heated, but it's warmer than outside. Left it in there for a day or two, then kind of brought it into like the cold cellar, which again, a little bit warmer. Then into the furnace, laundry room, furnace room, basically. Brought it in there, and it took about a couple of days to bring it inside, and like hopefully melting the snow slowly so that it wouldn't fry anything. So it took me about a week and a half to basically before I plugged it in to see if it even worked. And it did. It works great, and I love it. I have it set up in my work area. I have a little workbench area in like the laundry room, furnace room area. Where I have like a computer where I do all my eBay listings, and I have a TV there so I can watch something while I'm doing this. Basically, so I just don't, take over the living room for, dirty things that my son could like grab games from Value Village or the garbage and put them in his mouth. That would not be great. My wife wouldn't be happy about that. So it's in there, which is nice. I have my Retron 5 hooked up in there so I can, test games and whatever. And it's great. And then I also found a laptop at Value Village for $10. It's an Acer Aspire something or other. It's got Windows 7 on it. And I used to have an old Mac Mini, which at this point are pretty obsolete. And I, again, just had it in the other room hooked up to another monitor. Actually, you know what? It's really funny to bring up monitors. I found 4 monitors, all of the same thing. So it's the Samsung ThinkMaster 206 BW. I found 4 of those same monitors. Actually, what I'm using right now is a monitor that I found out of the garbage. And I gave one to my dad, and then for his computer, and I've got 2 others, again, in my workroom. And I had that Mac Mini that I also found at Value Village for like $7. Had that hooked up in there, and I've been using that as like my workstation. But that Mac Mini, man, holy smokes, that thing is slow. And I guess it's the whole planned obsolescence of Apple. It's kind of their thing. They don't update their software after a certain point, so your computer becomes obsolete. And it was just getting to the point where it was almost unusable, even though I'd spent money trying to get that thing up and running. Because when I got it from Value Village, it wasn't working. So I had to spend money on getting some RAM to put in it and everything like that. And I did everything myself. I learned how to take apart that Mac Mini and upgrade the certain parts that I knew. I am not a tech person by any means. I like tech. I think it's very interesting, but I can't solder, barely. I can, but it looks like crap, and I wouldn't trust any kind of electrical connection with my soldering abilities. So just got that kind of thing. So anyways, I got a laptop that's about equal, maybe on par to my actual laptop, which is several years old now. I bought that before I went to university, which was almost 7 years ago. Still run that laptop. Still works. It's slow, but it works. And we're so I have a laptop out there now. Anyways, hooked up to also the TV as a second monitor, and then I still have it for other things as well. Kind of a slow pickups week, if you haven't noticed. That's what I'm talking about, TVs and computers. yeah, I thought you guys would be interested in hearing about that. If you have other things you want to hear me talk about, by all means, you can hit me up on Twitter or on YouTube. I didn't do my initial spiel. If you are watching this on YouTube and you don't want to watch the video, you can head over, like I said, to any of the Google Play platforms or podcasting platforms and check me out there. If you are listening to me and you want to see my beautiful, ugly face, you can check me over on YouTube at Creepleet Channel, CREEP 1337, which how many years later I'm starting to realize is kind of a terrible name, but it's too late now. I got to deal with it. Actually, part of it is my name's been out there, and I've heard my YouTube handle pronounced in several different ways. So maybe it would have been easier if I used something else. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think. But yes, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts myself. Obviously, a lot of the Cartridge Club stuff. So like STC, Retro Fandango, Frantic Thoughts, Masters of Unlocking, Dollar Dorks, all those things. Been loving them. Retro Fandango actually just moved to like a weekly podcast, which I found very interesting. As I drive a truck, I love listening to podcasts as much as I can. And so it was a real treat when Retro Fandango came out, because I knew I was going to get like a solid 3 hours, and I was like, that's my day, because between getting in and out of the truck, I take my earbuds in and out and whatever. You got to talk and do stuff, whatever. So like a good 3 to 4 hours is all I can get about 3-4 hours of podcasting done per day, out of my day. Sometimes more, sometimes less. So when Retro Fandango came out, it was 3 hours. I'm like, yes, this is going to be a great day. I get to listen to Richard and Kevin talk about their stuff, and I found it very interesting. So, but going to a weekly podcast, they've cut that down to about an hour. I realize I'm getting about the same amount of content. It's just broken up over, a longer time, which is completely fine. But you know what, guys? If you ever, I don't know if you even listen to this podcast, if you ever decide, you want to do specials, whatever, and you want to make them 2 hours, I would be okay with that, because that makes my day that much better. STC, of course, Start to Continue podcast. Bill and Joe, awesome guys. Met them both in person, and top quality guys, top quality podcasts. There's a reason they just won Cartridge Club Podcast of the Year. I think it's well deserved, and Retro Fandango is hot on their heels for that award this year, and it'll be a fun race. But they are always fun. They're a weekly podcast every Friday, and they're a lot of fun to listen to. They make my Fridays, again. I wake up in the morning, I get in my truck, I start going. SCC's that first podcast on the list, so that's always interesting. And then Masters of Unlocking and Dollar Dorks, actually, and Retro Fandango all had episodes come out today. I'm recording this on Wednesday, and they've all had new episodes come out today. I haven't listened to them yet, but my next couple of days will be pretty good. And then Frantic, again, weekly. Really been enjoying his podcast. It's kind of like a one-man show. His name is Josh too, and it's kind of fun for me to like compare and contrast. Okay, what does he do? How does he do this thing? And I really need to see if I can find a couple more like one-man podcasts, so I can figure out how to adjust my flow and get a little bit more comfortable with this one-man thing going that I'm trying to do. I think I'm doing okay. I think my diction's getting a little bit better. My explaining ability is getting a little bit better. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this. When I first started YouTube, I was actually in my first year of university. And I think it really helped because you're putting yourself on camera. You're able to analyze, okay, what do you do that, that could annoy people? And it really helped me with my public speaking, my ability to present myself and explain ideas. And I noticed that, second and third year, I was the person that, when we were doing group projects, I was the person that was being pushed forward as a main presenter or, someone who would intro and close. try to involve audience participation. So it does help. It does help someone gain confidence in themselves and learn to present themselves properly. I'm still not a professional. I'm sure you can tell if you're listening to my stuttering and my dead air. That's all from lack of practice. I used to be a much more active YouTuber. I used to be putting out, 2 videos a week, sometimes more. I was at least doing weekly videos for a long time when I was with Game Hunters R Us and the initial onset of this channel of Creep Lead on YouTube. I was putting out weekly content, and over time that has just kind of slowed down. Um, it's just kind of I guess a natural progression of things. I've started my family now, and it's things kind of just take away from YouTube. I don't have a whole lot of time to game anymore, but I really enjoy watching people's videos, and I think I have more enjoyment with that overall. But that kind of calls into question, what am I doing? Am I collecting games for myself, or am I collecting games in order to create content? And I think that's kind of the inner struggle that I'm in right now. I don't want to call it a funk or a depression phase or anything like that. And I have had those moments where I look at my collection and say, what's the word? What's the point of all this? Just sell all of it, get rid of it, get out of gaming. Not get out of gaming, but get out of collecting gaming, and just, keep a couple things and get rid of it. And I've known a lot of people who have done that. And I don't know. I think the hard part is that I haven't really had contact with those people after they've done that. So I don't know how that worked out for them. I don't know if they're happier. I don't know if they regret their decisions or anything like that. So I find that it's hard to take that first step. I know P2 from Cartridge Club, he sold off a lot of his collection. He seems to be okay with it. I don't know if I would feel the same way. And I have purged some of my collection over time. There have been times, Barry Game Exchange is coming up. Time to go through this. Time to trim the fat. So you go through all your collection, this, that, and the other thing. Gonna get rid of some stuff. And you do. And I create inventory for selling at swaps and doing trades and stuff like that, and get some more stuff that I want. But ultimately, I'm still getting games. I'm getting more games. And to think that I started this collection with one shelf of games, like I started collecting Xbox 360 games because that's what I had. And over time, then I'm like, I remember playing. I had an old N64 in the closet somewhere. I really had fun playing that, so I pulled that out, started playing games. What are games that I missed? Got a couple more here and there, and then finally got to just buying games for systems I didn't have because I knew someday I would have them, and then it just kind of spirals out of control. So at what point do you just kind of, take a step back and say, you know what, this is too much? Because I know, I'll do a quick pan here. If you're listening to this, you're not going to see any of that. But, that is a ton of games. And I know for a fact, and I apologize to all your listeners, I know for a fact that I won't play half of those. I won't play, I'll say half, but who knows? I doubt I would even get to a third of them, just because of the sheer amount of them. And is that good or bad? Am I a bad person for holding on to all of these games that could be in better homes, people enjoying them? Or would they be going to just other people like me who would just have them sit on the shelf? That's the dilemma I face. And also, what am I playing and what am I not playing? I'm playing a lot of PS4 right now, so I don't really want to sell that stuff. But my original Nintendo stuff, I've got a lot of filler titles that I know I'll never play. Or Super Nintendo stuff that I know it's just going to sit there. I've had that stuff since I started collecting 6 or 7 years ago, and I still never played it. So I'm starting to get into that mindset now of maybe I should start downsizing my collection, especially some of the stuff that I know for a fact I won't play. Mostly cartridge stuff, and I hate to say that because cartridge-based gaming is where I started gaming. I grew up playing a Game Gear. I grew up playing a regular Nintendo. I grew up playing N64. So I have an affinity for those systems, but I don't have affinity for some of those games. So I think maybe that's where I'll start, is just kind of weeding through those, and starting to put them, out the door. And like even some of the stuff I was selling, I've been having a hard time getting rid of it. I've created a lot of inventory. I've been listing stuff on eBay. I've been listing stuff on Kijiji and whatnot, and trying to get rid of it that way. But it's a slow process. It's not something that you just list stuff up and it's gone, because I have to also take into account costs. I've put money into this, and I need to get some money out of it. And I'd prefer not to lose money on stuff, although sometimes that is an option. So yeah, that's I don't know. It's just kind of my discussion piece for the day. I do have some questions on Twitter, so if you'll bear with me for 1 second, I will pull them up. I did post on Twitter for anyone asking for questions and whatnot, so if you have any, that would be the place to reach me, and hopefully you guys will ask some more questions for the next episode, and I can answer them. So that'll be good. I'm going to try to answer this in chronological order. So the very first episode I got, speaking of Frantic Thoughts, Josh Leslie from Frantic Society. What game would you call your gaming addiction? Like, what game would you always go back to? So I think this changes over time. So there's a lot of the time, I'll play a game that I'm just really good at, and I just kind of want to sit back and just go through a game. But I don't think that's kind of what he's asking. But that is an option. So, people be like, a lot of people say Kirby's Dream Land is something you just go through in, 20 minutes and you're done. But I think right now the one game that I constantly go back to is Super Mega Baseball on the PS4. It's also available on Steam. But it's just I'm a baseball fan, and it's just a nice, easy arcade baseball game that you don't have to take too seriously. The animations are fun. The characters are interesting looking, I'll say. And it's just kind of wild and wacky arcade fun. I went to I've had friends over, and we spent an entire night, 6 hours playing this game over and over and over again, because it's different every time you play it. So I think the programs have done well in that aspect to, at least keep the game engaging. And actually I went to a bachelor party where I was asked to bring games, so I brought my Wii U and my PS4, and we were playing some games, and finally Super Mega Baseball came on, and that was just the game that was just constantly on we were there for a weekend, and that game was just on, and there was always people playing it, and it was just always there. So it's a really fun game. So even, if I sit down, I don't have a whole lot of time to play games nowadays, so I like kind of like the short experience. I can hop in, play a match, play a game or two, and then that's it. And so Super Mega Baseball is kind of my go-to right now. Like I said, hop in, hop out. All right, this is the question I kind of alluded to earlier, is from Deej13, the infamous Deej. You know what? Derek does a lot of good for the Cartridge Club. I think we all need to start like a thanks Derek hashtag, because I know he's helped with like live streams and getting people set up on charity events and just technical stuff in general. So I don't know, he's helped me a ton. So thanks, Derek. Hashtag that out at him. Let's make him feel how do I say that? I don't even know the words. Thanks, Derek. Derek says, Deej13, when do collectors stop buying limited run games just to leave them sealed? Hashtag NNS answers. So I think that will also be the official hashtag, because I realized that NSS, hashtag NSS, was something to do with Trump administration. There was a bit of a controversy. So I think I'm going to stay away from that hashtag. NNS answers sounds a bit better. So hashtag thanks, Derek. I think it started. I think that the limited run hype train is dying. I've been a part of a limited run buyers group / conversation on Facebook, and that has pretty much all but died. We used to all be really excited. We're waiting at that 10 o'clock Eastern drop time for those games to come out, and that's not really happening anymore. And I used to be that guy. Everyone hated me because I would buy 2 copies of everything. To buy one and keep one, and to sell the other one to make up the cost. Because you know what, I don't have a ton of money. Not a lot of people do, and it's just that was kind of an easy way to substitute the cost, I should say, or subsidize the cost of buying limited run games. And I think that limited run games is starting to kind of dig their own grave. And Masters of Unlocking touched on this too, that they're just releasing so many games now in such limited quantities, as their name suggests, and there's a ton of other companies out there doing this, that it kind of cheapens their brand. I'm not able to keep up with all the releases. I know that I won't be able to afford to buy all of them, so now I have to pick and choose which ones I'm going to buy. And again, coming up to that, things are being reprinted. So Wonder Boy, which I bought 2 of and sold 1. Thankfully, I sold it at a good time when the price was a bit higher. Now that game is probably worth more of its original cost, which is good for those people who want them. As someone who sells video games, I would be upset. Thankfully, I'm not really, because as long as I can get what I paid out of it, I'm good. But for a lot of those resellers out there, this is taking away their market. Thumbs up. I'm getting out of the limited run reselling game, just so everyone knows. It's not really a viable business opportunity anymore. And so, I sold it when it was high, but now it's being reprinted. So anyone's able to get it. You won't be able to complete your limited run set without it. So there'll always be those crazy collectors looking for all of that. But I do think the market is dying because, again, their brand has been a bit cheapened by the amount of releases. People can't afford to buy them all. There's tons of other pop-up companies, imitation companies are doing the same thing. Strictly Limited Games, same thing. Special Reserve is doing the same thing. East Asia Soft is doing the same thing through PlayAsia. So there's just a ton of limited run type companies out there right now, especially for the PS4 and Vita, just because I guess their production process is a lot easier. Although I hear the Switch process is starting to get a lot easier, so we'll see a lot more there. Then you're going to have a whole different market. You're going to have the limited run ish type collectors who are always trying to get stuff. Then you're going to have the crazy Nintendo fanboys who have to buy everything. So I think that might be the next wave. Once limited run starts putting out Switch stuff, I think you might hit it. There'll be another surge of everyone trying to get. Well, I'm going to get every limited run Switch game because those are the ones that are going to really hold their value, and they're probably right, unfortunately. But hopefully not. Hopefully that stuff will. Hopefully Nicalis will continue to put out their good work and reprint games of high value, so that'll bring those costs down. I'm all for it. I'm all for people being able to buy games at a good price. Sometimes that price changes depending on the market, how the market goes. Yeah, I think. Anyways, I think I'm just dragging on this question. Thanks, Derek. Hashtag. From the Retrolectors at Retrolectors on Twitter says, "What is one game/game series do you want complete in box?" This is hard because I'm not really a complete in box collector. Anything that I get is I pretty much just want by itself. I think the one exception that I might make would be the Ninja Turtle games. So I'd be like 1, 2, or 3 on the NES, not including tournament fighters, Turtles in Time, that kind of stuff. I'd like to get those complete in box. Will I ever? Probably not, just because I won't be able to afford it. I have the first one complete in box from when I was a kid. The second one, not so much. Third, again, it's getting more expensive, but that might be one. But I think overall it would be like a game that I really, really like, a game that I can play over and over again. And those already have boxing complete. Those would be like newer games. So like I hate to say this answer, but like the Gears of War trilogy, the original Gears of War trilogy, absolutely love that series. I would love to have it complete a box, and I do because I bought it brand new when it came out. So yeah, that kind of stuff. I realize that's a terrible answer. I apologize, retro lectors, for that horrible answer. All right, next question, and I believe our last question of the day, from Flock of Nerds, at Flock of Nerds on Twitter. If you had to play a game against the devil and a game for your soul, which game would you choose? And again, it would be a game that I'm really, really good at. And I'm not sure if he means like a competitive game or maybe like a time trial game. But I'm gonna go for like speed run. So I would play my favorite game of pretty much all time, Legend of Illusion on the Sega Game Gear, because I can run through that game in about 15 to 20 minutes flat. I can just run through that game. And it's a game that not a lot of people play. Hopefully the devil doesn't know how to play it. I think I could beat him pretty good at it. Another game that I'm really good at is Mario Tennis on N64. I've actually had friends. I've had friends over to play games. We play Mario Kart or Mario. Well, if I have the N64 hooked up, we obviously play Mario Kart, and like Mario Tennis and stuff. And I have yet to have one of my friends beat me at Mario Tennis. It's not happened ever. Mario Kart, sometimes I lose, but barely ever lose at Mario Kart. Amongst my friends, I'm not saying I'm a great Mario Kart player, but of my friends, I'm probably the best of them. Sometimes you just lose because of a freak accident or some damn blue shell gets in your way. But that's stuff you just can't control. But Mario Tennis, for sure, would be my second pick. I think I could take somebody on that pretty good. Anyways, that has been my episode of the Not So Special podcast. As you can tell, it hasn't been very special. Just me rambling on for about an hour. This has been a longer episode than I expected. So that's been good. I've been able to talk and hopefully keep you guys entertained. If you enjoyed this episode, please show me some love on Twitter. I'd love to hear from you guys. Or leave a comment if you're watching this on YouTube in the comment section. Again, I would love to hear from you there. If you have any questions, comments, anything like that, hit me up in either of those spots, Twitter or YouTube. If you have questions, use the hashtag NNAnswers. No, NNS. Man, I'm screwing up my own podcast. NNS, Not So Special podcast, hashtag. That's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for listening. I'll see you guys all in the next one. Hashtag, thanks, Derek.